be a light for you in dark places when all other lights go out.
Hey guys, DCHL Devin here, and welcome to another long-awaited Light in the Dark video. And we have had to spend a lot of time. As you guys know, I do these videos by myself, but I also manage Nova, the Lord of the Rings events at Nova, practically by myself as well. So it takes a lot of time for me to get these videos out and at the same time try to get the best event possible for Nova. As you guys know, the Lord of the Rings events at Nova are coming up in now 3 weeks as of the time of recording this video. And we're talking about the prizes are starting to come in, the terrain is going to start coming in. I'm going to be showcasing that. If you guys know, we actually make a new Middle-earth table for every single table in at Nova. So you'll be playing on a new location and everything like that. Some of the awesome events and stuff like that. I have like 9 events happening there, and I have to kind of invent them all. And just the most recent one, just to touch on it, we have Battle Companies, our tournament version, and it's just one that we're playing with, experimenting with. We've been play testing it all year, and honestly, it's supposed to be a faster, more entertaining version of the game. And I'll get into that in a whole Battle Companies video. But today, let's just get into our normal Light in the Dark videos, where I just answer questions and also talk about a topic that actually kind of interests me. Also, before we get into that, sorry, one more thing, guys. A lot of you have been still requesting list building videos, and a lot of you need them because you're about to come up to Nova, you're about to come up to Articon, which is coming up soon as well, and you need your lists and everything reviewed. So, Dave Nolan over at Dwellers in the Dark has really been wanting to continue doing these videos, and of course, I haven't had the time. I haven't had the time to even post his videos. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is just hand off the list building altogether. I'm going to give it to Dave Nolan. He's going to go ahead and continue doing the list building videos. So check him out over at Dwellers in the Dark. It's his YouTube channel, and he's once again a really good SBG champion over at the GBHL tournaments. I will go ahead and continue doing some occasionally here and there for myself, but I think he can do a fantastic job at just keeping up with it and making sure you guys have all the list building videos that you need. So Dave, take it away from there. So after that though, let's go into a topic that was actually brought up to me, and this is as I was making the tournament for Nova. And also, as the discussions on the ETC were coming up, is good versus good and evil versus evil. Should they fight each other in tournaments? There's actually a tournament coming up in Colorado. For those of you Americans who may not know about it, it's the Mayhem in the Mountains event. And they have it where you have to bring one good army and one evil army. Now, this is actually not an unusual concept. They actually really like this in Poland, and they seem to play like this in other countries, and I believe Italy and France possibly. But essentially, the concept is that players bring one good, one evil, and you have to show up with both because they only want good to fight against evil and evil to fight against good. Simple enough concept. As you guys know, the DCHL events and the GBHL events do not play this way, and the OSBGL events for that matter. I can't speak on every other league, but a lot of people just say, yeah, bring whatever army you have. And there's a lot of reasons for this. But the question is, was the game supposed to be good versus good and evil versus evil, or was it always supposed to be separate? So I bring this argument down to a couple points. All right, now, number one, of course, and let's get the elephant out of the room, the big thing is a lot of players don't have both a good and an evil army. In fact, even some veterans don't have good and evil. There are some veteran players who've been playing for 14 plus years who only have good armies because they despise the idea of playing evil ever. Maybe their favorite armies just all happen to be evil, for other veteran players. And then, of course, you have the new guys who simply don't have one of each. Now, this can create a lot of problems. The simple answer is, well, if you're preparing for a tournament, then, or even just regular gaming, then you should invest in both. But as we know, many of our players, or any player from any league, they don't have the funds. They don't have the money. Remember, this is a hobby, guys. This is not our main thing. And even if it was, it shouldn't be expected that we invest all of our spare cash into it. There's many other things going on in the world of nerd and comic book kingdom and all kinds of stuff. So it's going to be expected. We just won't have that much cash to devote into multiple armies, especially ones we may not even want to play. But let's go ahead and assume this video is for the players like me who like to collect every single army in Middle-earth, and we just can't get our hands on enough plastic miniatures. Well, then I have 3 reasons why I think tournaments generally want to keep it at just good versus evil, like, you know, none of that. Well, first, number 1 reason, and this is often cited amongst people who don't really know too much about Tolkien lore, is, well, good wouldn't fight good. Now, obviously, the evil isn't, the argument that evil wouldn't fight evil is never made, of course, because, well, we see that all the time, and that would be kind of normal that evil would fight itself. But the real argument is, would good really fight good? And the answer is yes. All over Tolkien Middle-earth history, good was fighting good, and in fact, slaughtering good. Let's get into some examples here. Number 1, we have the Kinstrife in Gondor. If you guys don't know, that's actually when Gondor fought itself due to like a lineage problem that was happening. I'm not going to go into the full details, but that's exactly where the Corsairs of Umbar were even started, is due to this, a split, a fracturing of Gondor. So that's good fighting good. Then you have, of course, let me get the easy one out the way, Battle of 5 Armies. That's good fighting good. Then you have Fëanor killing all the Teleri elves in Aman. Now, if you guys don't know what the hell I'm talking about here, this is actually in the Silmarillion. It's in the first age, all right? But basically, Fëanor was going after the Silmarils, which were stolen by Morgoth. Morgoth being Sauron's master. And Fëanor needed some boats to travel from Aman, which is where the Valar live, to Middle-earth. All right, and the Teleri elves were the only ones who had these ships. Well, Fëanor swore to kill anybody who got in his way of hunting down Morgoth. So he literally slaughtered all of the elves, all the Teleri elves. He slaughtered them all, took their ships, and then burned them once he got to the end. If you can't tell me that's not good versus good, okay. That's pretty much the quintessential example of good versus good. I'll give you some more examples. Ar-Pharazôn and the Númenóreans attack Aman. They literally attack the Valar. Now, granted, they were under the influence of Sauron, but still, this is another example of good fighting good. Did any actual battles happen there? Not really. But the idea that they actually attacked was a big deal. Of course, Eru just destroyed them all, and that was the end of it. But still, good versus good. Next, of course, you have Saruman turning evil. That's another example of good turning against good. This happens. I mean, Saruman was originally a good Istari, and he turned bad. So, next, of course, we have Lotho Baggins. Lotho Baggins betrayed the Shire and worked for Saruman. And in that is another example of good versus good. He pretty much took over the Shire and industrialized it before Saruman showed up. So, all right, there's another example. We can keep actually going into this quite a bit. The Ents attack the dwarves of Nógrad. All right, so basically, well, actually, let's back up even a step further from there. The dwarves attack the elves and actually start the entire this whole war between dwarves and elves in the beginning. All right, they attack a place called Menegroth, and I'm not going to go into it, but it's in the first age. But basically, the dwarves betrayed the elves, stole some of the Silmarils, or at least attempted to, a necklace that had a Silmaril in it, and essentially, the dwarves of Nógrad were lied to by the dwarves that tried to do this, and they said that the elves betrayed them. And so the dwarves of Nógrad attacked Doriath and Menegroth, and basically there was a huge slaughtering there. And then as the dwarves left that area, the Ents attacked them. And by the way, they were completely separate instances. All right, it's not like the Ents were like told to by the elves. They just attacked the dwarves and killed them all. So I mean, basically, guys, I'm not going to go into all these examples here, but the idea that good wouldn't fight good is pretty nonsensical. They would, and evil would fight evil. So clearly it's not meant for that. Well, then what exactly is the reason that good shouldn't fight good and evil shouldn't fight evil? Maybe it's just down to the technical aspect of Lord of the Rings. Maybe good just shouldn't be fighting good because the rulebook wasn't intended for good to fight good or evil to fight evil. As we know, a lot of abilities, like let's say the Harbinger of Evil says all evil models, the Harbinger of Evil rule that Ringwraiths have say all good models get -1 to their courage checks. Why not just say enemy models? There should be a reason for this, right? Well, I mean, obviously GW backtracks a little bit, and they do say, go ahead and translate that to say enemy models, but originally it was first written that way. The funny part about this is, directly out of that exact same rulebook, we get this little transcript written by, we could only assume, Adam Trolk himself. And he says, good versus good and evil versus evil. Can a good army fight another good army? Or an evil army fight another evil army? Absolutely. Although many of the races in Middle-earth will unite to fight evil, that does not stop their quarrels and grudges from blossoming into war and on occasion. Similarly, the thuggish hordes arrayed against them are nothing if not fractious, and are much given to the fighting amongst themselves. So, essentially, yes, that is the answer. The rulebook itself does not seem to disagree with the idea that good could fight good and evil could fight evil. So we can't say from a rules book standpoint that really they intended this all along. Now, through multiple edits and over time, this might have been the intention. Maybe back in the Fellowship of the Ring days, back when the game was first developed and there really wasn't that much for points match, yes, good would fight evil, and only that because the game was intended as a scenario game. It wasn't intended to be just, all right, you pick 700 points, I pick 700, let's go. All right, it was unheard of. So, I mean, maybe over time, as they kept just saying copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste, the Harbinger of Evil just kind of kept saying evil models. This is something we'll probably see dismissed over time. So a final reason I've seen why a lot of people think good should only fight good and evil should only fight evil is because they seem to be poised against each other statistically. So, for instance, you have a lot of debuffing of courage in the evil factions, and then you have a lot of high courage in the good factions. Also, you have spells and abilities that get completely negated if you fight evil versus evil. For instance, Ringwraiths, Sap Will can completely destroy each other. The Sap Will can actually destroy Fury and make it completely useless. In fact, a lot of shamans, as soon as they see a Ringwraith on the other end of the table, they're like, well, I guess I'm not casting that spell, because there's nothing they can do with it. It seems to be that the game was wholly designed for this. Also, even just little things like your staff is broken being given to the Witch King. Of course, Gandalf the White has it too, so there's an argument to be made there. So let's stick with the ones I just mentioned, Fury and the stat line one. Starting with stat line, we have a situation where this game is changing a lot. All right, before it used to be evil had the hordes, good had the high courage. They had the high heroes, the good armies, all right, the actual strong armies. This is no longer the case. With the advent of Lake Town, and now you see heroes like Bolg and Azog making their way. Honestly, these two sides are kind of flipping. Now good has crap heroes and crap units, and evil has some really strong heroes leading some fairly strong warriors. So those days of just it simply being a matter of evil does this and good does that are gone. You can even see good has actually lost its primary ability for being good. Back in the day, good used to always take priority because evil always gets to shoot into combats. Now it's just evil can shoot into combats and good kind of gets nothing. So with that in mind, it seems like a lot of the traditional sense we like to think of good and evil as far as the game mechanically has changed and has been changing over time. And we're going to find out the final changes, of course, with the new rulebook that's coming out this October. So let's get into the Fury ability. Yes, Fury is useless, but honestly, I could say that about almost any spell. Any spell in the exhaustion section would be completely useless. Now, but back in the day, Fury used to be canceled by beating the opposing Fury caster in a combat. It seems like they've changed it, but not to make good versus evil be like this thing that should be normal. It seems that they made it where they just wanted to streamline all the spells. All the spells are now just exhaustion. Just make it simple. Make them all exhaustion. And now when they're out as will, they're out. That's it. That's the end of the aura and the effect. Which on surface sounds really good, but of course Ring Rays cause a lot of problems for that. And I mean, it's unfortunate, but they also cause problems for almost any other aura effect. I mean, if I want to cast Aura of Dismay or Aura of Command, I mean, all those spells are now useless. Now you could argue that those spells aren't as necessary for the races that they're in, versus Fury, which is necessary for orcs. Obviously not necessary for Uruk-hai or the Kingdoms of Easterlings, even though they have it too. So I guess we're discounting them and we're just going to be sticking with the Moria Goblins, which is a lot of times the argument's made for. I mean, here's the thing, it's not necessary for them. All right, if it's not necessary for Lake Town, it's not necessary for them. Lake Town has low courage and has a lot of troops to make up for it. And that's why it's so hard to break them. They just have a low courage. That's their thing. All right, the Moria Goblins have the same problem. They just happen to have a spell that they can use, assuming a Ring Wraith isn't in the area. So honestly, I think all arguments fall flat about whether or not this game should be good versus good or evil versus evil or only good versus evil. By the lore of the Middle Earth, by the rulebook itself, and by game mechanically where we're going with SBG, it just seems obvious that the game is intended for you to play whatever you want. Whatever makes you happy against whatever makes your opponent happy. And then you play the game and you have fun. And that's it. That's all the rules writers really wanted you to get out of it. So I think the whole debate about why I didn't make Nova good versus evil or why other tournaments might do it, look, if you want to make your tournament good versus evil because you're trying to get a certain effect, great, do it. But as far as arguments about whether the ETC should be good versus evil, which is a big thing that came up in the ETC, or whether DCHL tournaments will be good versus evil, I don't think so. I actually don't think so at all. I think in a nice competitive atmosphere, if you're going for pure competition, you should just allow anything that the opponent wants to play. So with that, getting out of that, as you guys know, I go ahead and cover a topic that really interests me in the beginning of the video, and I'll go ahead and hit a couple questions here. And actually, I did have a question while we get into it about about Nova itself and some of the house rules that we have. Now guys, keep in mind if you're coming to Nova, we do use the GW approved parts of the GBHL FAQ. So someone asked me, does Galadriel have a 12-inch range at Nova? Yes, she does. Now, I'm sorry, 12-inch range for Fortify Spirit. So the Galadriel Lady of the Light has Fortify Spirit. Normally that spell says that you have to be in base contact in order to use it. But Galadriel has a 12-inch range. Well, that means she has a 12-inch range. In the GBHL FAQ itself, there is a clause that says that if Fortify Spirit is changed in its wording to say anyone within range is now affected. So Galadriel can cast Fortify Spirit outside 12 inches, or I'm sorry, inside 12 inches at Nova itself. This also is true of monsters and their brutal power attacks. Now, of course, we also added 2 house rules that are not in the GBHL FAQ, and these are mostly just DCHL house rules, and that is Sauron can't might the ring, and the denizens of Dark Denizens of Mirkwood all deploy as a single warband, regardless of how many you pick. This prevents evil from always having the one dropping option. So essentially, guys, read the house rules. Don't be surprised at Nova. We only have 3 weeks away. Make sure you get those and understand everything that's going on. Seems like we actually have very little time, so I'm going to go ahead into just a couple questions here. First question we have from Carolyn DeQ. She tries to correct me here. It says, their faction isn't called Easterling. They're just called like that because they are from the East, and their real faction name is Rune. Unless someone can correct me, actually I have to correct you, Carolyn. The actual name of the faction is the Easterlings, or the Swarthy Men. They are from a region called Rune, and the region is in the east. But they are actually just referred to as the Easterlings. That is actually what they call even themselves. So this is a lore-wise thing. Now, however, maybe one of you guys out there can prove me wrong. I'd be really interested in what you guys have to say in the comments section below. Is Easterlings just a moniker that's used just to describe the group that comes out there? Now, obviously, we all know, or many of us know, Rune is the location. That's the sea, where the sea is. That's the region they come from. So they're obviously, and I shouldn't say obviously. Obviously, you didn't know, but they do not call themselves Rune or Runish men, or they could, I guess, call themselves Men of Rune. I guess they could say that, but that's not really written very much, if they do call themselves that. But yes, from my knowledge, Easterlings is the name of the faction. But like I said, guys, comment section down below, you lore experts, let me know if that is not actually the case. So next question from Star Fox. He said, why is it called ETC if people from outside Europe? Shouldn't it be called the WTC? Looks like a great concept. So the ETC is called the ETC, the European Tournament Championship, and not the World Tournament Championship, because they don't want to open up the idea that a tournament could be held in America. And that sounds really mean at first. It's not mean at all. It's in fact very smart. But essentially, if a tournament gets opened up in America for a world competition, understand that most of the player base in the world is in Europe, which means that you can't have like tons of people spending thousands of dollars coming to Europe for this event when they all could just go like in their little area, and then you can have just 8 players coming from Canada and America to Europe. So basically it's a cost thing. And also if they call it the World Tournament Championship, you could risk it being held in New Zealand or Australia. Australia has a Hobbit League, but the problem is, once again, it comes down to the fact you have either 4 guys from New Zealand and 4 guys from Australia spending a couple grand, or you have 30 plus people from Europe spending 100 grand. It unfortunately financially, and it just makes more sense for us to hold it in Europe, where the central of SBG is. Now, if that dynamic changes in years, I'm sure they will readjust. But as of right now, that's just going to be the way it is. America will always be flying out to there. So in that sense, it is called the ETC, and America and Canada are guest countries. They are guests coming to the ETC and not actually part of it in any way. So hopefully I've discussed that clearly. Keep in mind, I'm not in charge of the ETC. That's actually something you guys want to talk to Owen Wright or Jeremy Entwistle about. They are the ones who sort of orchestrate this whole thing. And they have a team of guys, of course, and it'll all come out in due time. This is something that's far in the future. Of course, if you guys don't know, Articon is also coming up very soon. And that event is kind of the Disneyland of SBG on the European front. So I guess you have Nova on the west side where it's in America, and then you have Articon, which is kind of a bigger scale event. It's just different. Those two events are different. Articon being inspired by, but hence a different, very different event. And I actually can't wait to go to that. You will see me there and some of the DCHL crew that you don't really see on camera here very often, except for like Jake and Walker. But other than that, yeah, I think we're going to go ahead and round up the questions that's out there. Yeah, I know it's not too many questions. We will be posting more videos. Battle Companies is done, so I don't have to worry about that too much more. And I will see you guys very soon.